Hi there, and welcome to the next in the series of videos on Virtual Belfry that I'm calling Micro Lessons. These are small, bite-sized tidbits of information that should enable you to get the most out of Belfryware's Virtual Belfry software and hopefully show you some of the features which you haven't come across so far. Now, today's micro lesson, we're going to look at something which I'm sure you will all have heard of at some point, certainly if you've been ringing for any length of time, and that's putting methods together so that you can ring them as one. A lot of people would term this as splicing methods. Technically, because the purists may shout at me, what we're doing is not splicing, because we're going to ring a whole plain course of a method and then change to the next, whereas splicing you can change at any lead end as you ring the method, depending on what your conductor wants. So this is, I stress, simple compositions. I will be returning to compositions in future videos, so if you haven't already done so, please subscribe and click on the bell so that you get notified when new videos are released. That's about as technical as I want to go in this video. We're going to take three simple methods and put them together into a single composition that we can ring over and over and over again for practice. So let's get started. Right, so here we are in Virtual Belfry. We've got 6 ringers. 6 bells as selected up here, and of course on the left we have our normal control panel from where we can select what and how we ring. Now, because we have 6 ringers, we've got options for doubles and minor methods, for methods, exercises and chord changes. So if we look in our doubles menu, we get a list in the menu of all of the methods that are loaded. You can add these. There's another video on adding them from Micro Cyril, but we're interested in 3 at the bottom here: St Martin's bob doubles, St Nicholas bob doubles and St Simon's bob doubles. Now, as you put your mouse over each of them, you will see that there are options here in the pop-up menu for manual calls, where it just does a plain course, or you can control it with a foot pedal to do bobs or singles. Random calls, which is used to where the software itself will generate bobs and singles in appropriate places. And then we have one composition, which is an extent with 5 as an observation bell and is a 120. And at the bottom you have the entrance to the composition list. So if we select that, we will see that we get a list of any compositions for that particular method that we've selected. Now, we are going to do a composition consisting of a plain course of St Martin's, St Simon's and St Nicholas, not necessarily in that order. We went in through St Nicholas, so consequently it says that we're looking at St Nicholas bob doubles compositions, and we're going to select new. So this is where we put in our new composition. Now, first of all, we have to give it a name. So I'm going to call this All the Saints, and we are going to confirm here that it's got 5 bells. It's a doubles method. Now, the length here is an optional field. You can put it in, which means that when if you remember when we looked at the extent with 5 as an observation bell, you saw it was a 120. You can put whatever you like in here, but the length obviously is what would normally go in. So we've got 3 methods. We're going to do 1 course of each, no bobs, no singles. So the actual length of this is going to be a 120, and it's going to consist of 4 parts. Now, in here is where we actually put the composition, but before that we have to tell it which methods we're going to use, because we've got more than one. So in here it already includes St Nicholas Bob Doubles because that's where we were when we selected to enter the competition editor. So we're going to add a new method, and we can select it from the ones that we have within the system. Now the ones with ticks on are the ones in the menus, but you can have others in here. We're looking for St Martin's, so click OK on that. And what we're going to do is we're going to give it a label. Now I'll explain what that is for shortly, but we're just going to give it a single letter. We're just going to call it M for Martin's. No special calls for this, and we don't worry about the length. So we now have St Martin's Bob Doubles and a label of M. So we now need to add St Simon's to make the third one. So we go back into the list, scroll down, and we'll find somewhere here St Simon's. Click OK. We'll call that S for Simon. Again, no special calls, no length, and we click OK. Now these two have got labels. St Nicholas hasn't. So what we're going to do is edit St Nicholas, and we're going to add a label of N. Now you don't have to use labels, you can use the full name of the method if you want to, but in this case we're going to use the labels because it makes things nice and neat when we come to write the composition. So if we then go to the next tab, which is headings, we don't have to worry about any of this because we're only doing a very simple method. And then there are some other details, so we can put in the composer, we can put in the source of the composition, and we can put in any notes. So I'm going to put in here, thanks to Doug Nichols, who has spent a lot of time going through basic compositions with me, how they're actually constructed, how you put them together, so that I was able to do this video, because I too am very new to compositions. So if we now go back to our composition menu, and what we can do is we have to say that we are going to be changing methods. There is going to be a change of method in the composition we're creating, so we put in a tilde. Now of course all this information is in the help file if you want to go and read through it. This is just a simple video to show you, to get you started with creating your first compositions. So we put in a tilde, and now we have to say what compositions we want. Now if you remember, within our methods we put in a label, N, M and S. So each entry that you would put in here, so if we put in N for St Nicholas, is one lead of St Nicholas. So that's the first part. There are 4 leads in the whole plain course. So if we put in 4 N's, it will now do a plain course of St Nicholas. We then go to St Martin's. We don't have to tell it that we're going to change. It knows to look for changes. So we're going to put in 4 M's and then 4 S's. Now that is a very simple form of putting in a composition that says I want to do a plain course of St Nicholas, a plain course of St Martin's and a plain course of St Simon's. However, there is one issue. With Virtual Belfry, when Virtual Belfry gets back to rounds when you're ringing a method, it assumes that everything has finished, and you have to tell it to keep going. And we do that within a composition. Down here on the right hand side there is an option here for keep going, and we have to tell it that it needs to keep going twice. So it will go through the first 4 lead ends. You then take to keep going and it will go through another 4, and then keep going again and it will go through another 4. When it gets to the end, it will come back to rounds and it will stop. So what we need to do is keep going twice. So we put in a 2 in here. We don't have to worry about an observation bell. We certainly don't have to worry about things like half lead splicing. And all we have to do now is click OK. Now when we click OK, we will see it in the list. That's all the saints. It's a 120 It was composed by me, and it hasn't got a source. And on the right hand side here, it gives you a basic overview of what the composition is. Now if we now click choose, we find that it comes up within the method selection here, and note it says a 120. It says a 120 because we put it in the text box and told it what the length was. And now of course we can click generate, and it will show us the blue line for what we've done. So if we click, we have St Nicholas bob doubles, we have one lead to here, then we have a second lead, third lead, fourth lead, and then it changes to St Martin's bob doubles, and we get one lead, two leads, three leads, four leads, and then we get St Simon's, one lead, two lead, three lead, four lead, and we finish up back in rounds with this particular selected bell is number 4 in 4th place. So very simply, that's all you would have to do to create a very simple composition. However, there is always shorthands and notation. So if we go back into our composition, and you will note that it doesn't matter which of the methods that the composition contains you go to, it will the same all the saints composition will be in each of them. So if we select the composition list again, and we can now edit it, there are ways that we can use a little bit of shorthand to improve the way the method is shown. Now, if you remember when you were in school and you're doing maths, there was a thing you could do with brackets where you put a number, then a bracket, then something in the middle of it, and it always said you do whatever the number outside the bracket of whatever in it that many times. And you can do the same thing within compositions. So we're asking for 4 N's, 4 M's, and 4 S's. Well, what we can do is we can actually say I want 4, and we don't use a round bracket, we use a square bracket, N's, and we can delete the others. So 4 lots of St Nicholas, 4 lots of St Martin, and 4 lots of St Simon. Doesn't matter what order. If you want to change it, you can simply move them around. So that's 4 lots now of St Nicholas, 4 of St Simon, and we finish off with 4 lots of St Martin. So again, we can click OK, we click choose, and then if we click generate, we're now starting with St Nicholas, we then go to St Simon's, and then we finish with St Martin's bob doubles. So adding methods together to make simple compositions that you can use for practice and for training is actually really pretty simple once you've got your head around the idea of the fact that the method has a name and you just basically tell it what order and how many times you want to do it. Now, one other thing I will mention before we finish is if we go back into edit, we have the keep going here, and I explained that keep going meant that once you get back to rounds it goes again. Yeah, so you keep going twice in this case to get to the end of our composition. There is a keep going here on the control panel, and it's important to note that this has no effect whatsoever when you're ringing a composition. The composition is a self-contained number of methods and things that are happening when you're ringing, and it takes note of this keep going and it ignores this one. So if you actually find that you're ringing a quarter peal, as I was the other day, and you suddenly notice that keep going is set to 10, you don't need to worry. When you get to the end of your quarter peal and you get back into rounds, it will finish as it would normally. So there you go. That's a very, very quick introduction to doing a simple basic composition. You can use any method. So if you want to go in and create a method that mixes plain bob with Grancer, then there is nothing to stop you doing that. Just basically do what we've done here, go into the method, select the ones you want, give them a label, and then tell it within the composition exactly how many times you want it to do it. So there we go. Basic, simple compositions using the composition editor within Virtual Belfry. I hope that's been useful. If it has, then please let me know in the comments below. If there are particular things within compositions you want me to look at, again, leave me a comment and I'll do my very best to assist. So there you go. That's our Virtual Belfry micro lesson on simple compositions. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it's useful to you. And I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon.